Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak, everybody. Glad to see that we're in Ramadan, alhamdulillah. We are going to get started in just a second after I get everything kind of organized, inshallah. All right. So, again, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Okay, so alaikum salam, Nadim. So we're going to continue with the topic of Islamic leadership, and we're going to keep just going with that. I think we'll have another two. Let me check the calendar. We're going to have a couple more Sundays. Two more Sundays. So we'll finish it up in 2 Sundays. And remember, we're talking about Islamic leadership in the context of cult conversations, because usually when we're talking about cults, we're talking about there's going to be some kind of leader that is taking advantage of their leadership and taking advantage of the people and using religion as a means to transgress against people or spiritually abuse them. So we're going to continue with Islamic leadership, and it's a good, I can have my mic plugged in. Plug in the mic. Might help a little bit. Now, let's see. All right, can you guys hear me now? Yay, nay, thumbs up, something. Okay, we got a thumbs up. All right, alhamdulillah. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So again, we're going to talk about Islamic leadership so that if we can recognize good leadership, it'll help us recognize bad leadership, especially in the context of religious settings or Islamic settings where people claim to be divine leaders, divinely assigned or appointed. And if they don't represent good leadership, especially as exhibited by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then they're obviously not who they claim to be. Okay, so let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, Islamic leadership. And this week, we're going to talk about some traits and behaviors of leaders. And there's a lot of slides, but I'm going to try to go through them quick. And again, for all of these things, we're looking at the perfect example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after that, we look at the Khalifa Rashidun, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, radiallahu anhum. We want to look at them because those are the best leaders that we have, and their lives are well documented. For instance, one good source, many of you might have heard of the Shama'il of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Shama'il Tirmidhi. It's by Imam Tirmidhi, where he put together a compilation of hadiths of Rasulullah, his features, his qualities, how he dealt with people, how he combed his hair, everything in this compilation. And you could read that and get a good idea of what how he dealt with the people, how he was a leader. Um, and then in the Shama'il, there's features. It talks about how he communicated with people. It looked at his acts of worship. How did he worship? And it has his character and habits. So when we're talking about leadership, there are, of course, there's some traits and that are qualities that we cannot obtain except through Allah, right? For instance, physical appearance, as far as physical, the ones that you can't control. Like there's certain things we can't control about that. There's part of leadership is being presentable to people. Not to say that a person that is not attractive or whatever, or may have some deformities can't be a leader, but though these are also traits that help assist a person be like, for instance, we know that Rasulullah was a very handsome individual. Um, these types of things actually affect how people, whether while they follow you or not, these physical traits. So we can't control those types of things. But for most things with characteristics of leadership, we can learn them, we can adopt them. So if we learn about them, of how leaders behave, how good leaders behave, we can actually practice those and adopt those in our lives. And that goes for everyone. And I wanted to clarify something real quick, just so people don't get the wrong idea. Because like, especially when we're dealing with the stuff that we deal with, we've talked a lot about recently in TMOA, how they have a female imam. And a lot of times we use the word female leader, or these types of things. This is not to say that a woman cannot be a leader, right? Because there's plenty of women that are leaders and plenty of women that are great leaders. When we're speaking specifically about a woman cannot be an imam, when we're translating things to English, things get mistranslated when we talk about a woman can't be a leader. Okay, well, a woman can be a leader. A woman's leader in a household. A woman can be a leader in her family. A woman can be a leader in a business and all types of things. A woman cannot be a ruler of a country, a government, or a community, because that is the imam's position. Okay, so these leadership qualities also do apply to women as well. Okay, but we're not talking about a ruler or a governor or specifically an imam. Okay, so I want to clarify that, because some people might think that we're chauvinistic or misogynistic and don't think that women can be leaders. Yes, there's plenty of great leaders throughout history that were women. However, they were not Islamically, they were not imams. They were not presidents. They were not rulers or kings or these types of things, because we default to the hadith of Rasulullah that says any community or any group that appoints a woman as the ruler / imam / leader, overall leader, then they will not be successful. So I wanted to clarify that real quick. So anybody that is a woman is watching this, they should also look for these qualities and themselves and try to adopt them in themselves. So just wanted to clarify that real quick. So again, we want to look at these qualities for the people that we select as leaders and in ourselves, because we can all be leaders, no matter what position that we are in life or in our families, in our businesses, in our jobs, careers. We can all be leaders no matter where we're at. So a leader is what they do, not who they are. And this is very important, because I just talked about how there's some qualities or traits that some people are born with that are naturally good for a leader, right? And there's some traits and qualities that people are born with that actually might hinder someone being a leader. A perfect example is Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He was born with a speech impediment. He had a speech impediment. He couldn't help it, right? Someone who has like a speech impediment, that might hinder them communicating. People might not look at that as like a leadership quality, that if like a person's stuttering, or myself, I have a lisp, these things, but oh, that person is not a leader because the way they talk. A person is not a leader because the way they look. But there was an old theory, and it comes from old times, right, that there's leaders that are just born, right? It's because of your genetics. If you're born to a certain family or come from a certain bloodline, then you're automatically have the qualities of leader, which we all know this is not true. We know this is very, not true at all, right? And we can look through our history and see how many kings or whether it's sultans or caliphs or whoever, that when they appoint their children and their children's children, and it keeps going on like that, there's times that the leaders that they appointed, just because of their bloodline, were not fit to be the actual leaders, right? They didn't have good leadership qualities. Okay. So, and that's important in the context of we're talking about cults, because in cults, a lot of times, right, the leadership just passes down from the father to the children to the wives, or just it stays in one family. A lot of nepotism going on. People are not born leaders. Okay. Um, yes, a family status or where you come from could help as far as people perceiving you to be a leader. Yes, that does help. But as far as like having the qualities and characteristics, the majority of those qualities and characteristics are developed over time. People are not born that way. Okay. So it's very important to recognize that a leader is what they actually do and not who they are. So the first thing about a leader is that they have responsibility. And we all know, we should know this. Well, not, you don't have to, you not you should know, but many of us have heard the quote from the comics, from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? It's a famous quote that Peter Parker's uncle said to him, um, and that kind of like made him a superhero or whatever. That's his guiding force. With great power comes great responsibility. Um, and there's a little trick here when you recognize someone that is not a really good leader, that's associated with responsibility and accountability. Okay, but responsibilities, let's look at the responsibilities of Rasul Sallallahu. First and foremost, he had to deliver the message of Islam to like the worst, the most ignorant people of that time. Okay, they're called those the age of ignorance. He had to deliver the message of Islam. That was one of his responsibilities. He also had to set an example of how to, like, he didn't just deliver the message, he lived the message. Okay, he practiced what he preached. So that was the other thing he had to do. He had to govern, he had to rule over Medina, he had to rule over all of Arabia, right? He had to judge between people. He judged between Muslims, non-Muslims, husband and wives, giving rulings to make sure everybody gets the rights. He was even the military commander. He had to organize the army. And then what a good leader does as well is he had to delegate authority, because he couldn't be everywhere at once, right? He sent amirs or leaders to different cities and different provinces and different areas, and messengers and all types of things to actually take care of the responsibilities that he had. So he had a lot of responsibility. And here's how you tell a person whether they're a good leader or a genuine leader, or whether they're sincere or not. Because with responsibility, there is also accountability. Okay. So when you have responsibility, there's also accountability. You cannot be responsible for something and then also not be accountable for it. Right. So for instance, me, I'm the man of the house. I'm responsible for this household. So if I'm responsible for this household, and I'm responsible to make sure like there's food and heat and all these different things. If there's no food in the fridge, I can't then go and blame somebody else, because that was my responsibility. Okay. So if it's my responsibility to um, make sure there's food in the house, then I have to be accountable for when that doesn't happen. And you will see, especially from the background that we have, is that there's absolutely no accountability, right? The people they like the responsibility, they like the authority, but they don't like the accountability that comes with it. So when things go wrong, like for instance, in the context of the cult that a lot of us have experience with, when people are having mental issues, when people are getting on drugs, when people are leaving Islam, when people are fornicating, when people are committing adultery, when people are physically abusing people, and all these different things that we know go on. When all these wrong things start happening, why weren't the people that were the leaders of the cult taking accountability. Yes, this is our fault. We're sorry. We let this happen. We should have done better. You will never hear that from a spiritually abusive group. You'll never hear that from the cult leaders, right? Because they don't want to they'll take all the credit for the good things. Yes, it was us who moved you out of the cities. It was us who taught you Islam. It was us who got you to do X, Y, Z. All the good things, they'll take accountability for that. But for any of the bad things, they won't take accountability for anything, right? None of the bad things. That's how you know that a person is not sincere and that they're not a good leader, because a good leader, right, takes accountability for the good things and the bad things. All right, so leaders lead by example. They lead by example, and this is a this is a well-known like meme. If you see the picture on the side, like the difference between a boss and a leader, right? You see the boss one is sitting at the top, right, directing them to like basically pull me along, right? You guys go do this for me. Whereas the leader is right out in front, pulling along with them, setting the example. And everything that we look at in Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he set the example of how to do something. He did it himself, even in the things that were like you don't want to do, that a person normally wouldn't want to do. Let me make this a little bigger so people can read it. Inshallah. Okay. So this is how we actually have the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is that it's his example, right? We try to follow his example. And it's not just that they're involved in the easy stuff, the good stuff. Like you see the leaders of the cults, like they'll go to the press conferences, they'll go to the events, they'll go to the Eids and stand up in front of everybody and stand on stage and go to the meetings and sit up above everybody. And like they'll go to those things. But when it's time to get down in the mud, when it's time to get dirty, when it's time to do the hard things, they're having meetings somewhere and they're directing all the people to do that. Or they might show up to show face, maybe do a little bit, but then they always got to go leave, right? We look at Rasulullah when they were digging the trench around Medina, right? Like the Sahabas were trying to tell him, like, no, Rasulullah, don't do this. Like we got it. He's like, no, like I have to, how can I tell you guys to do it, right? I'm doing it myself. And they said that he worked harder than all of them. He worked harder than all of them. Okay. Right, and we have examples here from the hadith. There's a hadith from Ahmed or Ali, radiallahu an. He said, when like what's more trying, and this is in the Holy Quran, it can be supported by Holy Quran as well, is trying than jihad, right? Going out to fight a war, right? You're actually putting your life on the line, right? It's not building something or digging a ditch, like you're actually putting your life on the line. And Ali radiallahu anh said, when fighting grew intense and the two groups met in battle, we sought protection by drawing close to the Messenger of Allah, and none of us was closer to the enemy than him. So he was the closest one to the enemy. He was the first one to meet the first line of attack or defense. That's where he wanted to be. Look at the leaders. Look at your leaders. Are they the first ones that are doing the stuff that nobody wants to do? And when you're talking about cult leaders, they never are. They're distanced. They always have some other stuff to do behind closed doors, which mainly involves talking, drinking tea, gossiping, backbiting other people, and counting money, pretty much. There's another hadith where one night the people of Medina were in a state of panic. So all the people were in a state in panic. And some people went outside towards the sound. So there was a sound that occurred. Nobody knows what it was, but it basically scared the people of Medina so much that the whole city was in a panic. So if you could imagine that scenario, like in the middle of the night, like you hear this crazy sound, whether it's you're like, oh, is it jinns or is it a bomb or what's going on? Are people attacking us? Everybody's scared, right? And then the people went out to like, okay, let's go see what's going on. They went out and they were met by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he was already coming back. So, because he had gone towards the sound way before them, like he was the first one to get up. Let me go see what it is. Okay, and he had his sword. He had his sword around his neck, and he told them, "Don't worry, don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Okay, that's the example of a true leader. They're the first ones to get into the mud. They're the first ones to encounter danger, right? When we look at the context of the R2F and dealing with like TMOA, you have all these people that are like way down the food chain that are actually the ones trying to talk to us, trying to debate us, even the ones that are trying to insult us, right? But they're trying to defend their beliefs, which is a little bit honor, even though they can't defend them. It's there's a little bit honor in that because at least they trying. There's something in their heart saying, "I need to say something. I need to do something." Where are their leaders? Sitting back, drinking tea, being quiet, collecting money, counting money, stacking their gold bars. This is what they're doing. So they're not the first on. They're not on the front lines. They're on the back line, even way behind the back line. While the army's out fighting in the field, they're back sitting in their mansions. Charisma. So a leader has to have charisma, and this is one of the things that you'll see that's common amongst most cult leaders. They have to know how to motivate people, right? They have to know how to motivate people with their words. Um, so that is a quality that a leader must have. If you're going to lead people, you have to know how to reach people with your voice, so that they can touch their hearts, so that they can get them to do things, get them to follow you, or do whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. Um, but one thing that I wanted to mention in regards to this is that, and this is, I wanted to touch on this, the fake piety, right? These fake pious people that, and we might have this misconception too, that Rasul someone was just always just like calm demeanor. And you see, like he never raised his voice. He never did anything like that would like show that he was excited. Like, and you see these fake like Sufi masters like, yes, yes, assalamu alaikum, yes, do XYZ, I'm so humble, that's all an act. It's all an act, and it's not in line with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, because we have this hadith when Rasul was talking to the people, he would get so excited and so into the speech that his eyes would become red, his voice would be rose, and it was almost like his anger increased, so that he was like warning somebody against the enemy, right? Because he was sincere and what he was saying mattered, right? What he was saying mattered. It wasn't like, yes, yes, you should, you know, eat less, sleep less, talk less. That crap is fake, okay? And if anybody is speaking about Islam in just this way that they're never excitable or never like really engaged in what's being said, that means that's exactly what it is. They're not really, it's just an act, okay? You have to be able to convey the importance of what's being said, and you have to be captivated. You have to be captivating, because that's what the way he was engaging with the Sahabas, he was captivating them. So many of you have probably heard the hadith or there's multiple hadiths that the companions used the phrase, we were sitting like as if birds could land on our heads, right? They're sitting so still that birds could land on their heads, okay? And this is used, I know it's used in the cult that, the TMOA cult, where they use it as when you're sitting in front of the sheikh, like you can't move. Like literally, like when they would have Skype sessions, you would go and sit there, you cross your arms and legs, and you sit there and you try not to move. It's like if you move or look away or adjust your position to get comfortable, then it's going to be like disrespect. This is not what this hadith means. It's saying that they were actually generally so engaged in what Rasul was saying that like they wouldn't move. So like just imagine like you're walking down the street and then someone right behind you says, "Stop, listen to me." You're gonna stop and you're gonna listen. And you're not gonna fidget, you're not gonna move, because you're gonna be so engaged in what they're saying. Just think about like if you're watching a very good movie, right? You're sitting there with your mouth open, like, what's gonna happen? This is the speech. That's why they sat there with like, they weren't doing it like, oh, like just think about anybody that has this experience when you're sitting in front of these Skypes with these cult leaders or whatever. Oh, I need this. I really want to move. I'm really not feeling what he's saying. It's kind of uncomfortable. You're not engaged in what they're saying. You're just trying to hold that position for appearance sakes, right? This is what this meaning means. Okay, so I just wanted to cover that real quick. All right, so the next thing, this is a very important quality, and it's probably it's one of the it's a very, very, very important quality. And nowadays people are understanding the importance of emotional intelligence, right? So you hear a lot of things about, what's your IQ, right? And IQ tells how smart a person genuinely is. But now people, alhamdulillah, are understanding that IQ doesn't really mean much. Okay, IQs don't really mean much whatsoever as far as being successful in life. You'll see that mostly the people with the highest IQs have very low social or emotional intelligence, and they call that EQ. A lot of people, a lot of organizations, businesses, colleges are paying attention to EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. Because no matter what we do in our lives, we deal with other people. And so what emotional intelligence is basically the ability to understand yourself, right? The self-awareness, and basically understand others. And then there's some other parts of how you actually deal with those types of things, right? And you see the little image there where it says it's relationship management, self-management, self-awareness, social awareness. So those are the things that all go into emotional intelligence, right? But I'm just going to break it down into two parts: knowing yourself and knowing your others. Okay. And in Islam, we have this in Islam as well. And this is the perfect thing about Islam, is that Islam, all these modern concepts that people come up with, and these scholars and educated people come up with all these things, and it's like, oh, this is the real big thing. Islam has already talked about it. So in Islam, in the Quran, you have the ayat that says Allah is telling Rasulullah something to say, "This is my way," talking about the Quran and the Sunnah, and says, "I invite to Allah with basira," right? And what basira is insight. That's another way to translate that word. And those who follow me. I and those who follow me. So Rasul says, I'm saying, I invite people to Allah with basira, with insight. I do it, and the people who follow me. Okay, so I mean that's us. We have to use insight, or as the scholars describe it, basira is knowing yourself, knowing others, or the people that you're giving dawah to, and knowing the topic. That's just another definition for emotional intelligence. So Rasul is saying, I invite to Islam using emotional intelligence, right? You have to know yourself first, right? And you have to be able to manage yourself, know your emotions, manage your emotions, and you have to know the people that you're dealing with, okay? So that's emotional intelligence. So first, knowing yourself. You have to know yourself, and once you know yourself, you have to control yourself. You have to do both. It's one thing to know your emotions, but it's another thing to be able to deal with and manage your emotions. Okay, and we can go right back to this hadith, and this is a hadith that most people in TMOA cult should know because it's part of what people study. It's actually authentic hadith. The hadith is, the strong is not the one who overcomes the people by his strength, but the strong is the one who controls himself while in anger. So that right there is emotional intelligence at play. You're supposed to know when you're getting angry, right? And we can bring it into the context of domestic relationship, right? Husband and wife, and how Allah tells the husbands to deal with, like, if his wife's getting him mad or being disobedient, right? First you admonish them, and if you don't do this, all these steps, that takes emotional intelligence because you have to control your anger, right? And there's other hadiths where Rasul tells us how to deal with anger. If you're standing up, sit down. If you're sitting down, lay down, make a wudu. All these different things is that first you have to recognize that you're actually angry. If you don't recognize that you're getting angry, you're not going to be able to control your anger. It's just going to lash out at everybody, right? And we see this, right, with recent events in the cult of TMOA, of how the leaders have lashed out against certain people, right? Not controlling their anger, right? And it's not just like yes, we can all fight and wrestle and whatever else, right? That doesn't mean anything, right? You see, like, if you pay attention to a lot of dawah that a lot of us give, a lot of us get threats by people. Oh, I'm going to see you in the street. I want to beat you up. I want to knock you out. Do all these things. Okay, let's just say, right? We meet in the street. You beat me up. You knock me out. What? What then? Does that change anything? Didn't change anything. You still are committing shirk, committing bid'ah, and leaving the straight path of Islam. That didn't change anything. You beating me up didn't change anything. Me beating you up didn't change anything, right? So we have to be able to control ourselves and control our emotions. Knowing others, right? Everybody is different. You can't deal with everybody the same way. We had a little conversation the other day about how we deal with people, how we give dawah. Like, for instance, you'll see that when we're on our show, when we're talking to a broad audience, we're very, right, very stern, sometimes even considered harsh, right? Sometimes we even laugh and make mockery of some of the beliefs and practices, right? Because we're dealing with a broad audience. But then you'll see when we're dealing with someone individually on a one-on-one different basis, we deal with that person according to how we best feel that that person should be dealt with. Okay, we can go to all types of different examples in the Sirah of Rasulullah where he dealt with people differently, right? So, for instance, there's a hadith where Khalifa Umar went to Rasulullah and he was basically explaining. He was sitting with a bunch of Jewish people going over the Torah, and he wanted to. He was happy because there was something in the Torah that was like confirmed that matched up within the Holy Quran, and he went to go show Rasulullah. And Rasulullah basically like scolded him for doing it. But then we all know the hadith of the Bedouin who came in, right, went to the masjid, went in the corner and urinated, right? And then Rasulullah like, oh no, leave him, take him out, clean up after him. But what would have happened if Khalifa Umar urinated in the corner of the masjid? I'm pretty sure Rasulullah would have dealt with Umar in a different way than he dealt with that Bedouin. Okay, and we have a hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha, and she said, a beggar passed by Aisha and she gave him a piece of bread. Right, so a beggar came by, she gave him a piece of bread, and then he went on his way. Another man who wore clothes and had a good appearance passed by her, and she made him sit down, and he ate with her. When she was asked about that, she replied, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, treat the people according to their ranks, right? You treat people according to their status. In other words, you don't treat everybody the same, right? That's a mark of an emotional intelligence, that you know how to deal with each and every person. You don't paint everybody with the same brush, okay? So let's move on. And the third part, because remember, go back, what Basira was. Basira was knowing yourself, knowing others, and knowing the topic. So we just talked about knowing yourself, we talked about knowing others, and now knowing the topic. So, and the part I want to bring out about here is, of course, you have to, like we talked about this before, you have to know what you're leading. You have to know what you're talking about, right? You have to have knowledge. Or so some had the knowledge of the deen, right? So that's why we follow him in the deen. Okay, but a good leader also recognizes when they don't know something. If you have a leader that's not saying I don't know a lot, you don't have a good leader. If they have an answer for every little thing you bring up, chances are they're not a good leader, right? They're just a know-it-all, right? Or they're just making stuff up. And it's crazy. Like in the cult of TMOA, they would literally have him. He would act like he was an expert on every single topic, even to the point where he was telling people how to like farm. And the people that knew how to farm could tell he didn't know what he's talking about, but wouldn't say anything, right? So when you have leaders like that think they have an answer for everything, or they come up with an answer for everything, they're just winging it, right? They're winging it. A leader should a lot of times say, I don't know. Go ask so-and-so. They know more about this than I do, right? And here's a perfect example of that, right? Again, know when you ain't that guy. If you're not that guy, don't act like you're that guy. Okay, so like if say I was in TMOA and I wanted to start a basketball team, you would not be going to ask Noor or Sheikh Jelani, hey, who should I put on my basketball team? But I bet you they'll give you an answer, as if they know anything about basketball, as if they have any experience playing basketball or winning championships or anything like that, right? But they'll give you an answer because they're know-it-alls. But you're actually not that person. But there was a time, and we should all know this hadith, that where Rasulullah, he was walking by date farmers, and they were doing cross-pollination stuff to like get the dates to get ready to grow, or whatever they do. Farmers, people that are into planting and stuff, probably know more about that stuff than I do. But that's what they're doing. They did some kind of cross-pollination with the date palms, and it helped them like grow better. And Rasulullah walked by, and he asked what they were doing, and they told him, and he pretty much said like, "Oh, you guys shouldn't do that. Just let them grow by themselves." And then he walked off. So they did that. They did exactly what he said to do. Like, they didn't do the cross-pollination. And then the next year, or whenever it was time that, they were supposed to grow, they didn't grow as well, right? And so when Rasulullah asked, like, why didn't they grow that well, they pretty much like, you told us not to do it. And then he responded, he said, if there is any use of it, then they should do it. If it was just a personal opinion of mine, and do not go after my personal opinion. But when I say to you anything on behalf of Allah, then do accept it. For I do not attribute lies to Allah, the exalted and glorious. So basically he told them like, well, you guys know more about that than me. You guys shouldn't listen to me. This is a worldly matter. If you guys know more about the worldly matter, like, that was just my opinion, but you guys are the experts. You guys should have done what you guys know and what was right. Okay. So that's a perfect example of a leader. Like he's like, look, that was a mistake. That was my opinion. I was wrong. You guys were right. You guys should have did what you said. That's a good sign of a leader, is knowing when you aren't the right person for the job, or that you don't have the answer. The next quality in Islamic leadership is that the default should be mercy. The default should be mercy, kindness. And that's something even myself personally, and even us as a group, probably the faces of R2F have to work on. The default should be mercy, kindness, being gentle with the people, okay? Especially with your followers, right? There's an ayat in the Quran where Allah says, and by the mercy of Allah, you dealt with them gently. And had you been severe and harsh-hearted, they would have broken away from you, broken away from about you. They would have left you. So basically, Allah is telling us that since you are kind and gentle with your followers, they followed you. If you were harsh with them, they would have left you, right? So that's something we should all take into account. It's easy to be harsh. It's easy to show our anger. It's easy to be black and white. And it's harder to be kind and gentle. And that's something we all should work on, inshallah. And here's a good example of how to tell whether someone's a good leader or not. It's looking at how do they deal with their enemies. How do they deal with the people that don't follow them, that are against them? How do they deal with them? If we all watched The Message, we should all know like how the Muslims treated the captors in war, that they treated their prisoners of war so well that most of them just took shahada after being a prisoner of war. So just look at that example right there. You have someone that just a little while ago was trying to kill you, except he didn't. You beat him, you capture him, and now you treat him so well that he's like, man, I want to be on your team now, right? That is the essence of a true leadership, and that comes down from the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you look at people, like look at TMY, right? Look at the cult, and this is for all cults. Look at how they treat people that don't agree with them. They call them enemies. They try to break up their families. They threaten them, right? They physically attack them. They destroy their property and all these different things. Is that how Muslims deal with their enemies? And this is jihad. This is Muslims treating other Muslims. Astaghfirullah. Like, we're talking about how is it that Muslims, from the example that we have from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, treated kafirs who were trying to kill them better than Muslims are treating Muslims that don't agree with them. Like, that's something that we should think about. That's something that the TMOA members should really, really think about. But we have the hadith that the Messenger of Allah took a handful from it. So there was like war booty, and Messenger of Allah took a handful of it and started distributing it to the people. And one of the munafiqs said to Rasulullah, "Oh Muhammad, excuse me, oh Muhammad, be just." Like he basically accused Prophet Muhammad of not being just or not being fair. Then the Prophet said, "Woe to you! Who will be just if I am not just? You would fail and lose if I were not just." So this is a munafiq, and there's another incident with the same wording where they were coming back from one of the military campaigns, and one of the munafiqs, excuse me, guys, one of the munafiqs said, "The one who is honorable will throw out the one who's dishonorable," and he was referring to Rasulullah as being dishonorable, and he was referring to as one of the leaders of the munafiqs, as that when they got back to Medina, the leader of the munafiqs was going to throw out Rasulullah. And there was an ayat revealed directly in the Jama'at or in the Quran about this individual, basically exposing him as being a munafiq. So they know at this point this person is a munafiq, right? The munafiqs are worse than kafirs, right? These are the worst enemies of Islam, the munafiqs, because they act like they're Muslim, but they're really not Muslim, and they work against Islam. The worst enemy, okay? So they know this person is a munafiq. And so when this happened, the same situation here, Umar, of course, right? Umar says, Rasulullah, let me kill this hypocrite. Let me kill this munafiq. And what does Rasulullah say? He says, leave him alone, lest the people say Muhammad is killing his companions. Just think about that, and think about that, the context of NTMOA, like where people have in the past been killed in the group, right? People have been killed, but let's say modern times where they're not actually Allah's best killing anybody that we know of. Inshallah, they don't kill anybody, but attacking somebody, punishing somebody, because basically what Rasulullah is saying that I don't want people to say that just because they made me mad, I'm killing people or I'm punishing people. Because that's what people will say. People say, "Oh, if you become Muslim and if you make Prophet Muhammad mad, he's just going to kill you," right? Think about this in the context of TMOA and cults. If you join, you can join the cult. If you're in the cult, it's fine. But if you make the leader mad, oh man, they're going to kick you out. That's the same exact thing. So if this is how the leaders are dealing with the people that don't agree with them or their enemies, it's a sign that they're actually not a good leader, at least not a good Islamic leader. The leaders have to be authentic, right? They have to be authentic, okay? And authentic in the lines of being transparent. That's what I wanted to talk about in regards to authenticity. Okay, not being fake. Being authentic means not being fake. Okay, like we talked about earlier, the fake pious guy is like, yes, I always speak in the Lord voice, and I'm always calm, and nothing riles me, and I'm such a Sufi, and I'm so humble. And no, Rasulullah raised his voice, his eyes got red when he's talking about Islam. But I want to talk about transparency. Okay, and transparency means that a leader is sincere and that they're not hiding things, and because they generally have the best interest of the people in their minds and in their hearts. When they're hiding things, especially like hiding like funds, the money that the people give them, and the people have no idea where it goes, and they're unwilling to give like a detailed accounting of every little penny that passes through their hands, that's a sign that this person is not authentic, and they're not being transparent. So in this hadith is where Rasulullah was given a sermon. This is part of the last sermon. And he asked the Sahabas, he said, did I deliver the message to you guys? Because that's part of transparency, is that he came to deliver a message, and he's basically having them testify, did I deliver the entire message to you? Did I hide anything from you? Okay. And they all bore witness that Rasulullah did convey the message. Okay. And Rasul also asked Allah to bear witness that he delivered the message. So there was no secrets. There was no secrets. There was no secret information, contrary to a lot of people want to believe today, that are on these deviant paths that believes that they have their sheikhs and their leaders have like secret knowledge. No, Rasul is telling us right here that he delivered the entire message. And anybody that comes and says that they have some secrets relating to Islam, they are liars. And they're lying on Allah and they're lying on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is an important thing as well. Leaders have a voluntary following. They don't force people to follow them. And it's not about lip service where a leader will say, we don't care, we don't need followers, it doesn't matter if you follow me or not, you can leave if you want. It's talk about their actions, okay? Because a true leader is going to keep on leading even independently without even asking anybody to follow them, right? People will just naturally like, okay, I see what's going on here. I see what this person's goal is. I see what they're doing. They're transparent in what they're doing. They're transparent in what their goals are, okay? I want to get on board with that. I'm going to help this person do that, okay? That's called getting a voluntary following. Even if you are put in a position of authority, the best leaders get their people that's under them that's following them, even whether it's the job or whatever, they get their people to voluntarily, willingly, freely follow them, okay? They don't have to say, hey, well, I'm your boss, so do this. They don't have to rely on that. They have to go say, hey, we need these reports done by Friday. What can we do, guys? And people's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna stay overtime. I'm gonna do this because I believe in you. I follow you. You're my leader. Not because oh, you're put in a position of authority, right? In the context of TMOA, you hear this thing. We don't need any talibs. All you need is one talib. Okay. People can leave if they want, go their own way, all these different things. Instead of saying that, if they're really sincere in what they did, right? They would say, okay, people, pick your own leaders. Okay, people, decide what you guys want to do with your money by yourselves. If you guys want to keep it in your community, fine. If you want to pay me my salary and make me a millionaire, we could do that too. But let the people make the choices, right? If you don't need people to follow you, you don't need talibs, go tell people on the lands that, you know what, you could live here. You don't have to be part of the Jamaat. You don't have to take me as your sheikh or sheikha. You can live here if you want. You just got to be Muslim. Go ahead. And if you want to get down with the stuff that we're doing as part of the Jamaat, you can do that as well. If you want to pay into this membership dues and all that, yeah, you can do that voluntary. That's the mark of a true leader. Just like we have the ayat in the Quran where it says, La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in deen. Rasul didn't force any of these people to do anything. He gave them the message and they followed him. How to be a leader at your lowest, examples needed. What do you mean by lowest? Let me know what you mean by lowest, Nadeem. You can type it in. Yeah, go ahead, let me know. Assalamu alaikum.
What I mean by what I mean by notice lowest when things are not going the right way.
Okay. And
And
you're
it's
already,
absolutely not going the right way. It's like going backwards and you get frustrated and all that.
yeah, that's just part of life. Like I think the best way to be like a leader in those situations, and I think it'd be individual case basis. But again, one is to know yourself. So things aren't working out. So like you said, you're frustrated, you're angry, maybe you're sad, knowing those feelings are coming, right? Knowing that these things are affecting you personally, and then not taking those feelings out on the people that are following you. That's one, right? So you may be angry that you had a plan, you're going to do X, Y, Z, and maybe things didn't fall in the right order, or maybe people didn't follow your directions or your leadership the way that you want them to. One, you don't take it out on them, right? So you don't let your emotions, your negative emotions, further disrupt your leadership. Then you got to know others. You got to know how they're feeling, right? You got to know how those people are feeling, because, like, say for instance, this is taken in context of at a job, right? You're a leader, you're a manager, you're leading people. You had a goal of producing 1,000 widgets in a week. You have a team of 5 people, but you guys didn't get there. You only produced 750. Those people are most likely feeling upset, angry, frustrated because they didn't meet the goals as well, right? So you have to deal with them as well, right? So you have to set an example for them. And I guess the best example we could probably get is look at the Sirah of Rasul again. And of course, we use Rasul because he's the best leader, right? Human leader on this earth that's ever been created. Allah is the leader, right? Allah is in control of everything. So he provides the best example of how to lead and guide people. Okay, look at where the Muslims were the lowest, the Battle of Uhud, right? Where they just lost the battle to the Meccans. And they lost, right? Primarily because some people disobeyed Rasul Sallallahu, right? They left the hill, right? The Rasul said, you guys go here, stay here, and do not leave no matter what. This is the plan. If we do that, we leave. Muslims went in, you know, the pagans, the Kafirs were like on a retreat. Then the Muslims got greedy, left, disobeyed Rasul, left, tried to go get the booty, and only like 2 or 3 Sahabas stayed. Khalid bin Walid, may Allah be pleased with him, when he was a non-Muslim, came from the back, and then it changed the whole tide of the battle, and the Muslims ended up pretty much losing that battle. Some say it was like a standstill, but they lost, right? Muslims started to retreat, ran from battle, all these different things. And afterwards, right, you would think, remember, think about it, everybody's depressed, sad that they lost, scared that, like, oh man, we just disobeyed Allah. We left our post. What does Allah do? He sends down ayat saying, I forgive you. You're forgiven. Right off the bat, right? And then like motivates them. I don't have the ayat at hand, but look it up. Look at the ayat that Allah revealed after the Battle of Uhud. It is really motivating. So you have to find a way to identify how your people are feeling, right? Find a way to motivate them. And also what Rasul said, or Allah told Rasul to be kind and gentle, not only with the people that we're leading, but ourselves, right? Remember, first part, know yourself. We can't, like, we have to be kind to ourselves, take care of ourselves, right? Forgive yourself, take accountability, like, oh man, I messed that up, but also don't be too hard on yourself. Oh, I'll never do right, it's never going to work, and just keep right back at it. Rasul gave dawah for 23 years. How many years? He was 10 years in Mecca before, like, nothing was going right. Nothing was going right. You have to be persistent. You have to be patient. You know, we look at the examples of the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. He gave dawah for over 900 years. We have to be patient. We have to be consistent, and we have to keep throughout that demonstrating those leadership qualities by being lead by example, by being kind. Like, we could just go right back through the ones that we just said, right? We have to take accountability. We have to be responsible. We have to lead by example. We have to still motivate people and say the right things. We have to exercise our emotional intelligence. Okay. We have to do all these different things, even when things aren't going the right way. And that's probably the best time too, because I was going to get into this. It's easy to be a leader when things are going right. It's easy, right? It's very easy. Like, just think about, like, for sports fans, we got the dream team, okay? Got the best basketball players in the world all on one team. I'm pretty sure it was pretty easy to coach that team, right? Well, we're gonna win, right? They won every game by a lot of points, right? But how hard is it to take a team that's losing, doesn't have that great players, to then make them into winners? You know, so that's the best time to be a leader, is when things actually aren't going right. Where did I leave off at? Hope that helps answer the question. And again, I'm not the be all end all, but that's just my personal advice. Ethical leadership. Of course, we want our leaders to be ethical. There's leaders that demonstrate all the qualities that we just mentioned, but are ethical. And for those of us that have come from a cult, should know this too well, that Just because someone is a good leader doesn't mean they're a good leader. Okay, they may not be an ethical leader. All right. So as far as our standard as being Muslim is that they should be striving to follow the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. If they're following the Holy Quran and the Sunnah to the best of their ability, even though we know they're going to make mistakes, but then when we bring the Holy Quran and Sunnah to them, they recognize their mistake and they try to fix their mistake. That's a sign of an ethical leader. Okay. They have to be sincere as well. Allah revealed in the Holy Quran, he said, so judge between them by what Allah has revealed and do not follow their inclinations away from what has come to you of the truth. So they don't follow their desires, right? They don't lead for their own self-interest. You see, Rasulullah, the best leader of all time, leader of all Muslims, he could have become filthy rich. Even the Meccan pagans offered him, like, we'll make you our leader. We'll give you all of our daughters to marry. We'll give you all of our money, everything. Just stop preaching the message. And he's like, no, I don't care if you give me the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand. I'm not abandoning this message, right? That's a sign of an ethical leader. If you see leaders that are enriching themselves off of the religion of Islam, that is a straight example of someone who is not an ethical leader. Now, it's one thing to, like, you know, there's some, like, you look at these YouTube sheikhs, they do a lot of content, and I'm pretty sure some of them are kind of well off because they get paid to speak and these different things. But when you're looking at it in the context of like a community, right, where people are paying like membership dues and fees, and those fees and membership dues are not helping those people at all, right? Because there's nothing wrong with like a leader of a community getting some kind of salary or something for their services of being the imam, running the masjid, running the community. There's nothing wrong with that, right? However, these people should not become filthy rich where that when they pass away, their children and their widows are battling over millions and millions and millions of dollars, where every single person in TMOA, except for maybe less than 10, are dirt poor. There's something wrong with that. If your followers are poor and the leader is filthy rich, we'll put it another way. If your followers are filthy poor and your leaders are filthy rich, then that leader is filthy. Straight up. No question about it. Because if Rasulullah he was in debt in his last days because he would give people money. He would borrow money to help people out. He would borrow money to give to people. Is that what your leader's doing? Is your leader fixing your roads, building your schools? Literally right now in TMOA, I know we're going to limit our TMOA talk, but literally right now in TMOA, they have a leader who can literally by herself develop every single land in TMOA, fix every single road in TMOA, and build every single masjid in TMOA, and build a school on each and every single land in TMOA. Right exactly now. Will she do it? No, she won't. Filthy leader. Trust. And this I think we're getting towards the end. Yeah, so trust. Just the last thing I wanted to talk about specifically before we wind up. Well, I'm almost right on time. Alhamdulillah. So trust. This is important in the context of spiritual abuse because remember we talked about trust in spiritual abuse. That's the currency, right? That's the thing that spiritually abusive or cult leaders manipulate to take advantage of people, is the aspect of trust. Okay, when you get someone's trust, you got them. You can get them to do anything. You get them to do your money, give you their money. You can get them to give you their children, their wives. You can get them to kill people. You can do whatever if you have someone's trust. And when you want to look at a good leader, look at how they manage trust. How do they manage trust? And when you see people abusing someone's trust, that's a sign of a bad leader. So we go to the example, and this is in Tabari, but if you look up the hadith of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh if you look at stories of the Battle of Badr, you'll hear this story that before the Battle of Badr, when they're organized to attack the caravan, Rasul basically was wondering, he didn't know if the Ansar, the people of Medina, were going to participate in the battle. Why? Because the Ansar, they had an agreement. They took a bay'at with Rasul, and that bay'at and that agreement did not include going out to fight. They promised that if anybody tries to attack you in our city, we will protect you, Rasul. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. All right, so he didn't know if the Ansar were going to fight with him against the Quraysh because it was outside of the city and they didn't agree with that. Now look at Rasul. He knows he had their trust. He could have simply said, let's all go fight. Y'all coming too, right? But Rasul such a great leader, he knew that would have violated the trust that they had with him by just forcing them to do something that they didn't agree to. Okay, so basically he asked the Ansar, like, are you guys going to come fight? And then Saad ibn Mu'adh gave him a beautiful answer and says, like, yes, we believe in you. We trust you. You know, you came with the message. Like, if you wanted to cross the ocean, we would cross the ocean with you. You know, he gave an eloquent speech and basically said, yeah, we're gonna fight with you no matter where you go. Okay. But again, it goes back to that voluntary following. He gave them that choice, even though Rasul knew, like, I could just say, hey, we're all gonna go fight. Y'all are coming too. But since he knew that they didn't agree to that, he didn't violate that trust. He didn't violate that agreement that he had with them. But you'll see in cult settings, leaders violate trust all the time. They just take for granted that their followers are going to do everything they say, right? They're going to do everything they say. They're going to push their initiatives, even at their expense, right? Like, just think that something as simple as the Eid that is coming up. Something as simple as that. Instead of saying, hey, people, we are having an Eid in Virginia, and we would like as many people to come as possible. If you can afford it, we would like to see you there. How great would that have been if the TMWA leaders said that, instead of saying, we're having a mandatory Eid, everybody has to be there, you're going to sleep in tents if you have to, don't pay your electric bills, the Eid fee's $150, and these sort of, that's violating the people's trust, okay? Finally, the last thing we'll talk about is just some other leadership traits, is that they can be task oriented, and we talked about all the different tasks that Rasul had to deal with. He ran the government, he delivered the message of Islam, he was the military commander, he was judging between peoples, he was a marital counselor, he had to do all these different tasks. They set goals, right? There's actually clear and identifiable goals of what the leader's trying to accomplish, okay? If you look in the cult settings, you'll see that there's no real goals, right? There's no real goals. Well, there's a bunch of goals, and everybody kind of just identifies their own. Oh yeah, we give dawah, but they don't let anybody join the group. But they actually don't do any real dawah. Oh yeah, we're about becoming self-sufficient. Oh, we're about spreading Islam, or we're about whatever they say they're about. We're about the Islamic Pulse. We're about education. All these different things. But leaders set clear goals that people can buy into. They organize resources, right? So when you have money, food, whatever else coming in, they organize it and properly, accordingly, efficiently. Not where, like, for instance, if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming in and from a community and none of that money is used to help benefit the community, that's a problem. You're not really organizing resources. And they were a facilitator. Okay. So you look at like, you facilitate between different people. Like a real leader, right? A real leader, if we look at the from our background and dealing with like the cult of TMOA, a real leader would be able to step in and say, you know what? I see that there's some wrong going on. Let me facilitate this. Let me step in the middle of this, and we can try to get to the bottom of this, right? And they wouldn't be afraid to do that. So next week, inshallah, we are going to talk about the relationship between leaders and followers, and then we'll have one more after that, inshallah. If there's any questions or comments, go ahead and type it in the chat or unmute yourself. Let me just check YouTube. Amr. So yeah, Jafar, we will see how well you coach when things aren't going right. Yeah. I'm not the leader of R2F, just to let y'all know. So I don't know why Amr's up there and they're lying on the YouTube chat. I am not the leader. Type that real quick. So if there's any questions, I'll wait a second. Amr's the leader. Y'all get him. He's number one on the TMOA most wanted list. So I think we're all set. Everybody continue with your Ramadan. Again, remember we have the tafsir shows. Really attend the tafsir show, especially live. This show is good to attend live if there's conversation happens, but definitely attend the tafsir show because you can ask questions relating to actual like Islam stuff with Mubarak. And then we'll also have another show closer to the last 10 days of Ramadan. We'll talk about the night of power, or Laylatul Qadr, and the signs about Laylatul Qadr. And then we'll have another show near the end of Ramadan to kind of just close out Ramadan. Again, everybody enjoy your Ramadan. Take advantage of it as much as you can. We should not go into Ramadan one person and then come out Ramadan the same person. We should really try to change ourselves, even if it's just a little bit, right? Even if it's just a little bit. We're talking about leadership now. Be a leader first with yourself. Lead yourself. If you can lead yourself, you can lead others. If you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead others, straight up. So use this Ramadan. We get into like, we're going to finish the Quran. We're fasting. We're tired. We're trying to do all these different things. Don't lose focus of grab one negative characteristic, one negative quality, and try to improve it just a little bit by the end of Ramadan. And that'll make you a better Muslim, and then make dua for the next Ramadan. And as we keep making these little improvements, eventually we'll get closer and closer to the people that we need to be. So that's it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم.